All right, so when you are sketching the graph, okay, make sure that you are make sure your mode, especially if you use this for other classes, your calculator, make sure that you have radian mode, and then you're going to go to polar. Okay, so you should have radians here, and then instead of function, we're going to go over to polar. And what that does is when you get to y equals, you should be able to see that you have an r value here. So you're going to plug in r 8 cosine of 2 theta. And then I'm going to give you some points to label on there. Okay, so I know that some of you are done with this. The ones I want you to label on your chart if you're done are going to be the points at 0, at pi over 6, at pi over 2, at pi, and at 7 pi over 4. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just have you label A, B, C, D, and E to make sure that you know how to label those points instead of just using your pattern. Okay, so like I said, some of you have already graphed that, that's fine. I want you to label these values, the A, B, C, D, E. For those of you that are just starting with me, okay, we are going to go to our table set, and we want to start at 0. And then remember, what we talked about yesterday is the units always go by pi over 12. Okay, so this is 1 pi over 12, 2 pi over 12, 3 pi over 12. So we're going to make the change in our table pi over 12. And if you see that it's that 0.26, you know that you've done that correctly. And you are always going to want to start at 0. So one thing I told you yesterday is one thing that we can do to help us graph it quicker, or at least for me, I feel like this helps me graph it quicker because I don't have to look back and forth every time. So I just start writing down what these are. So I have 8. I rounded this to about 7. I had 4, 0, -4, about -7, -8. And that's the part that we did together yesterday. So when you're creating that loop, anytime you have a positive value, if I'm going to go out to 8, I have to put what my scale is by. So make sure that you remember to put like your scale by 2s. So if it's positive, I'm going to go 2, 4, 6, 8. That's where my first point is. This one's about 7, so I'm going to put it halfway between 6 and 8. At pi over 6, I'm at 4. Pi over 4, I'm at 0. And then when you get to the negatives, instead of going out to where the positive 4 would be, it's the reflection. So you go in the opposite direction. Just make sure if this is a 3, when you go in the opposite direction, this should also be over a 3. Okay, and then -7. Okay, and then -8 would be right here. Okay, so we graphed this first part of the loop yesterday. And then today I asked you to keep going with that. So again, make sure that you can center yourself at some of these key values. Like this is pi over 2 is 1.57. So now I know this is about -7, -4. What's 8e to the -13th? 0. Good. Okay, and then I have 4, 7, 8. Now remember what we talked about how a lot of the graphs are symmetric? Do you see how they started repeating themselves here? And then see how that's going to happen again? So you have 8 and then 7. So at 3.14, I'm at 8, 7, 4. This would be 0, -4, -7, -8. -7, -4, 0, 4, 7. Okay, so if I continue this pattern, really you're going to end up seeing, okay, yep, this has to be a symmetric petal. So this is at -7, then my next line I'm going to 4, then my next line I'm going to 0. That's going to create this part of your petal here. Okay, and what you're graphing are these points. You have 0, then you're going to be out at 4, then you're going to be at 7, then you're going to be at 8, 7, 4, 0. Okay, so these that I graphed are from here, the -4, and then this is going to create your next loop. Now make sure that your petals are symmetric, okay? We don't want one limpy petal. For example, my one on the board, okay? That one, see how the petals don't look symmetric up there? Okay, so we don't want that. Okay, and then, so I just graphed this part, and now I'm at -4. So when you go across the line, your pi/3 be at -4. And see how I just checked that? If that ends in 3, I want that one to end in the 3 as well. And then I have my -4 here. My -7, my -8, my -7, and then this was the one I graphed first, and then 0. Okay, so your loop is going like this, and then like this, and then we have around to the top, and then this is going to be where your last loop is. And you can use the symmetry to help you. Like you can see if this is 7, this one's going to be 7. Okay, and then we're going to label these points now. So at 0, we are at 8, and we're going to label that A. So point A is right here. Okay, at pi/6, I'm at 4. So I want you to label that point B. Now at pi/2, you're at -8. So do not label this as C. This is not C. C is here because it's a negative. Okay, at pi we're at 8, so this is D, and then at 7 pi/4 we're at 0, so E would be right in the center there. Okay, what questions do we have about this rose curve here? Mm-hmm. Nope, I'm going to give you different ones to plot. So like on a test, I would give you the theta values, and then you would have to tell me what R is and then plot those. Yep, Joseph. So those come from your calculator, and I always start at pi over 12. I do that so I don't have to look back and forth at my calculator, and then I can just plot them. So if I go to my table set, I can start at 0, go by pi over 12, and then I just go around the circle. So I start at 0, this one's pi over 12, this one's pi over 6, pi over 4, and then I just keep going around. And that way I don't have to look back and forth. If you guys are better at that, you don't have to do that. I just feel like it helps me. And then I also don't get mixed up when like if I were to give you the theta value, then I could see right there what it is and plug it in. Okay? So for 4, you're sketching this graph. And again, this is something that I would give you on a test. I would give you your theta values. And they can be any of the theta values. Okay, and then I would just ask you to label them A, B, C, D, E, and make sure that they're in the right place there. All right, so we're going to sketch a graph of r equals 1 minus 2 cosine of theta. So I'm going to go back to my y equals. Have some of you seen what the shape is? Yeah, it's a, do you guys remember what it's called? The Lamasson, right? And this one has this one's going to have an inner loop in it. Okay, so I'm going to put that in, and then again, we're going to go to the table, start at 0, go by pi over 12. Okay, and then some of these are ones on your graph, like the -1, so you can put that there. Okay, and then again, you can just round. Rounding to the nearest tenth is fine because you're not going to be able to estimate much more than that. And then, do you guys see how I'm just writing down what I have in my table? Can you guys finish that loop and then graph it? And then, sorry, I'll move this. So if you guys need to graph the points, you can do that.